Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui in Beijing. Papi Jiang, one of China's hottest internet celebrities whose clips are regularly viewed by millions on social media, has been ordered to stop recording and posting videos online by the State Administration of Press, Publication, Radio, Film and Television, citing her use of bad language. Dubbed as China's #1 internet celebrity, Papi Jiang became popular for her clips in which she shared her feelings on life and society, as well as reviewing the latest movies. In the face of large investments hitting the headlines, will such cyberstars usher in a golden age or fizzle out as just another overhyped fad? And how do we understand the rise of the cyberstar economy today? We are joined in the Beijing studio by Professor Shi Anbin from Tsinghua University and Duan Yanling, Creative Director of LER Design. But before we get started, let's look at this.
我是 Papi Jiang， 一个集美貌与才华于一身的女子。
This girl, Papi Jiang, has been dubbed China's #1 internet celebrity in 2016. She became popular last year with her series of humorous videos mocking and criticizing some social realities, such as the plastic materialism of wealthy Shanghai socialites and the incessant pressure on young women to get married.
我跟你说啊，等你过了30岁，你就真不值钱了，明白吗？
Once her videos were posted online, many of them gained millions of views. Her fans claimed that her videos resonated deeply with the views and lives of young people in modern China. But on Monday, the government's media regulator ordered her videos offline due to her use of coarse language. The videos can be uploaded again when such language has been removed and regulations are adhered to. Some people supported the regulator's decision, saying Papi's vulgarity might have a negative influence on minors. Others said her values were progressive, despite her choice of words. Later, Papi Jiang responded with a Weibo post, saying, "I will pay even more attention to my words and my image, resolutely respond to the requests to rectify my online videos, and transmit positive energy to everyone." Currently, Papi Jiang is estimated to be worth around 120 million yuan. She received financial backing to the tune of 12 million yuan from 4 fund companies last month, and her first advertisement video has just been auctioned online for 22 million yuan, or $3.4 million.
Welcome to our studio discussion here. Given the given the official controversies surrounding the use of bad language, could you imagine that investors are still outbidding each other to invest in this cyber celebrity? And Papi Jiang ended up having 22 million yuan at the latest auction. What do you think of the internet sensation?
I think first of all we question if it's real or not, and because all of a sudden, entire afternoon, everywhere, every message I got is about this and this number. It's so sensational, and everyone's homogeneously doing the same thing. So of course, as a PR savvy or experienced person, I would question the realness, which is Papi Jiang supposedly to represent.
No one questioned the sensation itself, but do you think this phenomenon is sustainable?
I think this is still kind of, I call it generation gap, characterized by contemporary Chinese popular culture. Our governing body or authority was still what we call digital immigrants. But whereas the major mainstream audience for internet is what we call digital native. So they have a lot of discursive and also cultural ideological perception, which is totally under a kind of imbalanced situation.
But do you think the Chinese authorities, the media watchdog, are really prepared for ushering in this golden era for cyber, celebrities? This is indeed a big shock for those who are old enough to know that this is, after all, a world of official journalism instead of a citizen journalism.
So this is exactly the complexity of Chinese society. We have this what we call postmodern phenomenon. They're characterized by parody, and parody is now a kind of norm for those young generation. Whereas for the older generation, of course, parody is something anti-orthodoxical.
Are we too old?
I think we're doing the perfect sitting in between, understand two worlds in that kind of a time. So that's why I think I do definitely understand the both sides. Internet age, especially in China, you feel you are in a different pockets of internets. Different circles, different community have their own idols, but this one really break through from their own circle, which is represented by, it's highlighted by their own cyber stars. So Yang Rui is for the mass, but there are so many. PB Jiang used to be having 10 people, 1,000 people, the live broadcasting. Today, 20,000 advertising.
It's also because we have the monotony of mainstream media. Mainstream media all looks like CCTV. So this is exactly the problem.
No, Yanling, I protest seriously. You cannot draw a parallel between Yang Rui and Papi Jiang.
It's comparison. It's comparison.
Well, this is a very difficult to compare, to draw a parallel. But what do you think of the contents of Papi Jiang, the humorous online videos that she posted? Now, the number of 40 such clips is not a big one. It's not. It's not. It shouldn't be so influential. However, we were indeed shocked by the huge influence that she delivered.
I do really think internet is amazing with this randomness. There is a kind of randomness happening. 14 videos. It is a drop in a sea. But I think PB Jiang represents something like her personality is so new, because we are so used to see this surgery enhanced, white skin, fair skin, the so-called beauty, and they are all so fake. In the past 5 years, everybody was talking about this surgery enhanced beauty era, but she came as like a real person. And we all know CAFA is an extremely hard school known for hard to get in, because you have to be intelligent, you have to be artistically savvy, and from her track record, you know she knows what she's doing. So I do believe she has such an interesting personality that focuses on satirical performance to kind of mocking the phenomenon. So I think from that perspective, it is a very interesting phenomenon.
She is also represent a kind of what I call transcultural communication, because she is able to use English, Japanese, Shanghai dialect to mingle it as a sort of cultural hybridity. Whereas in our CCTV or mainstream media, you cannot allow to even use dialect, let alone English. So this is, again, fill in the gap of what I call the digital native. They like this kind of hybrid.
Papi Jiang was so bold and so critical of the social problems and illnesses of different kinds that Bob Xu, or Xu Xiaoping, who is one of the major investors in Papi Jiang at the latest auctions, even elevated her image to the entertaining version of Lu Xun, one of the most famous writers in our living memory. What do you think of the scathing criticism that she used to criticize some of the bad things in our society?
I think the major difference between Lu Xun and Papi Jiang is that Lu Xun is really a kind of touch upon the national character of Chinese people, whereas I think Papi Jiang is still a kind of entertainer. He used to actually touch upon a sort of like what we call an issue, not really a public topic, a public policy issue. So this is probably demarcation between what we call information and infotainment.
But that sounds really like an observation, because I think for her, the point was when she started 1 year ago, there was more a form of self-expression and her personal imprint and what her personal observation of social phenomenon, rather have Lu Xun have this national responsibility on his shoulder. So I think it's a very different perspective that represents today's
In other
youth.
words, Papi Jiang did try to deliver serious stuffs, but nevertheless in an entertaining manner. The issue is whether the media watchdog is prepared to accept this kind of media oversight, because we have been quite comfortable with the use of media oversight, particularly social media, to watch out for the misconduct of government officials and other kind of social problems. But Papi Jiang came across as something really sensational, and it could be a plus, right, for the media oversight.
She is definitely not the most sensational in terms of those, watchdog standard. But of course, she's the most famous, and also she drew a lot of capital recently.
Hey,
So
come
that's-
on.
yeah.
She did draw a lot of fire for the use of bad language. What do you think of this most controversial part? I mean, public opinions, to be honest, were divided as to the use and the effectiveness of such bad language.
I mean, the language per se, I wouldn't be a big issue for me, but despite that, I do appreciate her personality, the genuinity, and the realness. But the idea of, when I'm watching her content, yes, there are lots of satirical stories, and there's mimicking different stereotype of what happens in this society. But on the other hand, the content itself doesn't really have so much depth, or there's not so much nutrition that I can draw from. So when we really watch a personality online, we're hooked because we want to get something from her or from him. But for her, I think it's more entertaining.
But a second look at the media ethics, given her enormous influence, don't you think she has actually become a very influential public figure, and therefore the image and behavior of such a public figure should deserve more attention, and therefore the media watchdog assumes the responsibility of saying, hey, you got to behave yourself?
Like I mentioned earlier, this is still kind of a perception gap because for the media watchdog, of course, media should have social responsibility. Papa John must be a role model for the young generation. Whereas for the audience, especially young audience, Papa John is just a way of entertaining themselves. It's just a way of we call catharsis. So I think this is totally a different understanding of the function of media.
Don't you think some of the expressions that she used could be compared to the F words somehow?
Oh, absolutely, in that level for sure. But I think for very personal opinion, I think they still reflect that China is still so fixated on the money issue. I mean, the viewership is money, it's an internet currency. And when she got 20,000 something million, that's also big news. But what the value of internet and so-called live stream perspective is personality, it's some kind of interactivity. But now it's began mainstream media was like broadcasting bombarded with its attention to her. So back to the traditional media focus. So it's a very interesting paradox to me. It's a phenomenon.
Wednesday, President Xi Jinping urged media watchdog to have a broader tolerance for critical voices on the media, and he pointed out that government officials should follow very closely public opinions. Wherever we have the public opinions, the presence of the government officials should be immediately felt there, so that they keep contact with the latest development to serve the purpose of, for example, scientific policy making. Now, having said this, such kind of a scathing criticism by Papi Jiang might fall into the category of public opinions, so that it should not be easily rejected. However, on the other hand, for Zhong Xuanbu, which is known for criticizing sensu, the three forms of vulgarity, what do you think of the crackdown, quote unquote, ordering her to take down, remove some of her clips to remove the bad language and the wording?
So I think when you mentioned President Xi's speech, I think he actually emphasized well-intentioned criticism.
Not bad language.
Yes,
right.
not bad language. And also I would not think Papa Jiang actually as considered as a public opinion, because he still is an entertainment. She wants to draw attention.
You don't think
she wants to make
represent
money.
public opinion?
No, I don't think
No,
so.
she's
That is
very
very
personal.
controversial.
I don't think
It's
so.
personal, but it's also an important part of the public opinion across the broad spectrum, right? The new media is an important part of the mass media today.
Yeah,
And she's a very symbolic figure.
But
isn't
when
she?
we say public opinion, it must actually a public debate on certain social issue. But I think Papa John's
You don't think she's addressing social issues?
Yeah, trivialization, of.
That's
of
very
this,
controversial. It's
yeah.
debatable. Yan-Ling, don't you think so?
I think, yeah, I agree, Professor, because I think it's very personal, and that's her form of self-expression. But I think that when I was reading some Western media, it's very interesting. People really looking at this crackdown news as very sensational, because it reconfirmed the perceptions of Chinese government was doing something against, which I totally understand. But I want to just highlight another perspective is China has this long history of government want to be parent. They really want to do things that we think is good for our members, society members, or my children of the country. So in a sense, that's those foul language, those kind of vulgarity. There's something we should really avoid.
This is what we call the liability of the media,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
well, some of the viewers of our program may not agree with you necessarily on the point of personal. I mean, given the huge influence of Papi Jiang, and don't you think anyone whose message went viral on the internet would no longer be viewed as personal?
Yeah.
But I think
It's larger than life, so it's not personal.
popularity and meaningfulness is two different matter. I think when we have so much spotlight on her, we just put so much more meaning on her or her figure. But the point is, she was popular. She is popular. She may not be today, tomorrow. So I think the meaning of her role is still, we have to wait to see.
So initially, she probably can be considered as a kind of personal media or represent herself. But now with the participation of capital and probably power in the future, she could become a kind of media organization.
Yeah, then she will be influencer for sure.
And many netizens say, ironically, that the criticism by the administration of press, publication, radio, film, and television has actually helped Papi Jiang to surge to fame overnight. Having said this, despite the strong character in what she said and what she performed, let's draw a parallel comparison between Wang Sichong, yet another cyber celebrity, son of a super rich guy, Wang Jianlin, and Papi Jiang, to look at the phenomenon of cyber economy. What do you think of the differences in terms of the content and the way the videos were delivered?
I would say Papa John is representing a kind of what we call self-publishing media or entrepreneurial media, because she herself is a content provider. Whereas Wang Sicong, as you mentioned, he just I think is sensation. He's just himself. He only publishes his own photos without any actual content provision at this point. So they still has a kind of demarcation between what we call personal media and mass interpersonal media.
Any similarities between Papi Jiang and Wang Sicong?
I think once they got so much focus, they got a power because people will project so many things on them. But when interesting, I think is a paradox for this afternoon is there's one cosmetic brand bought that sponsorship, and Papi Jiang was known for against the so-called beauty, traditional beauty. So that's very, very crazy ideas going around. People want to go for it, not necessarily know why they're going for it.
So I really thought about how Papa John can still keep his feminist standpoint.
Exactly.
Because initially he's very anti,
exactly
male
anti
chauvinism.
this thing.
But
yeah.
now he was sponsored by a women's cosmetics company.
That we never heard
really
of
thought
before.
about it.
So it's very interesting paradox.
A lot of contradictions. You're
Yeah.
watching Dialogue with Duan Yanling and Dr. Shan Bin. We're discussing the impact of a rising internet star, Papi Jiang, and what it means for the future of the Chinese media. We'll be back in a short while. Stay with us. Welcome back. Does her style, Papi Jiang's style, share any resemblance with another Shanghai comedian called Zhou Libo, who is famous for 海派清口 or Shanghai style clean talk?
She's based in Beijing, and definitely I think she represents something very Beijing.
But her Putonghua is perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And I think technically Zhou Libo never really made it from internet, and then his audience is much older than Papi Jiang. So technically they are different eras. They're the figures of different eras.
And he posed himself as a typical gentleman, and he also used Shanghai style Mandarin.
Yeah.
Whereas Papi Jiang was a kind of like a much westernized, much I call it hybrid cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see some self-mocking comedian, right, especially a woman that coming up to the social scene. So that for me is a very positive sign.
And notice also Zhou Libo is a clean talk. I think he never used foul language.
Yeah, it's a
so that's the
public
major
figure.
difference. He's a gentleman.
But some of what he said was very sensitive,
Yes.
I'm afraid. Innuendos were employed by Zhou Libo to refer to some of the Chinese leadership. But what do you think of... Yes,
Sorry,
go ahead.
it's just nature of entertainment, I guess, right? We have to poke somewhere and to stir you and to make you think or laugh.
What Zhou Libo did reminded me of the spitting image of the BBC. I mean, that was a very interesting sensation in the United Kingdom. What do you think of, say, the allegation that we live in both great times and tiny times? There are some philosophical implications about the use of tiny times, as if young people today have got carried away by purchasing the use of luxurious handbags like LV from France, automobiles of big brands. Do you think this would help young people dilute their interest in politics, and therefore they live in what we call the trivial pleasures? They enjoy the trivial pleasures.
I personally really think that we give too little credit for today's youth, because the popular media or this kind of sensation news always put a focus on particular issue. But actually, because thanks to internet, we do see a very diverse community of youth are coming. I was in a concert last week. All born on 90s, they were reciting Guqin, playing Guqin, reciting Taoism. It's very interesting, different, diverse group are coming up, and that's really the power of internet. But Papi Jiang phenomenon, actually, for me, is reflecting the power of traditional media. When something is news savvy, someone gonna be on the spotlight, has to not necessarily really reflect what's happening in Chinese internet scene, especially among youth.
So back to your early point, you said it's a great time because we have diversity, we have greater room for democracy and also freedom of speech. But the tiny time is because people do not actually use that right to actually discuss public issues. So this is what we call the era amusing ourselves to death. So this is.
Are you actually talking about a sense of alienation from political participation, and therefore it could be I mean, controversially, it could be a blessing for the government because no government leadership would expect the young people to show so much interest in politics.
Yes. But President Xi yesterday urged that the public should actually surveillance the official, and also official and the public should have a very healthy communication. I do not think even our leadership would encourage this kind of so-called depoliticization.
I'm not sure what you're talking about is politically correct, except for a latest development concerning the campaign success of Tsai Ing-wen in Taiwan. DPP looks set to win the campaign, and then young netizens in their millions across the Taiwan street with use of Baidu, right? And they shocked the other side of the Taiwan street. They used Facebook and Baidu to shock the rest of the world.
Yes.
What do you think of their political participation in their own unique way, in a very organized way, very well organized way?
This is much more like I would still call nationalism. It's not really
nationalism.
Public political participation. I would really use the example to say what we call a kind of NIMBY, not in my backyard. Recently, we have a rise of a lot of young people, middle class people protect their own environment. For example, we call the PX chemical controversy. So this is probably a way that the initial step for middle class young people to participate in public politics through internet. But this is definitely not Papi Zhang's role. I think didn't she play any kind of constructive role in leading public politics?
But I think I agree with Yang Rui that the political literacy in this country is relatively still that much developed based on traditions, culture, and current situation. But I think the nationalism is a kind of we have this negative toning for the nationalism, but in China, it's always considered to be something right to do. But internet, we are raveling internationalism. So nationalism may be something we should watch out for rather than cheer up with. Yeah.
Given the very unique and interesting relationship between the government and the media in China, what do you think of the growing trend and dynamics in commercialization and entertainment of news dissemination? I mean, Papi Zhang, you have to admit that there are some satirical and serious stuff in what she says through the use of the social media. Could be an important part of, or additional value for the news dissemination, nevertheless in an entertaining way.
I wouldn't think Papi Zhang will become another Jon Stewart, because like I said, she is still an entertainer. We actually would anticipate a new generation. We will have someone like Jon Stewart, who can actually lead the young generation read politics. But so far, we do not have such a person. This is exactly the gap between the government and the young generation, because they could not actually communicate effectively in terms of politics.
Do you think, Yanling, what happened about Papi Zhang is none other than just commercial hype? It's like a flash in the pan.
I do think her phenomenon, like her name, is a fad, because it was rising at this speed, by physics, it will drop in that like a balance speed as well. But on the other hand, I do think that Papi Zhang's phenomenon will encourage two kind of people. One will see there's another money pool that we can go into. Then they will pollute this new, I think, a very promising media format is live stream platform, which is a perfect place to form community, self-expression, and even learn and train with special skills, which is used widely worldwide. This live stream format. However, people will go there for light porn, attraction, attention-driven, money-driven, money pool. That's something I'm really worried about. This 20,000 million, this 20 million thing is not a good news. To me personally, not a good news for internet.
On the other hand, we would also think Papi Zhang would actually change the orthodox of Chinese culture, because we have a culture called silent is gold. Nobody wants to speak because word can bring you troubles. So in the new generation, probably actually people would talk. Even young ladies can talk like this. So this is, I think, in many ways, a kind of initial step for democracy, because democracy would build on communication and also expression.
I want to add along a little bit as well, like you were talking with Jon Stewart. We do really wish to see some character with real humor with intelligence, with entertaining manner, but not necessarily only this kind of a cheap jokes, I would say, like a really, where's that kind of joke. And I think Papi Zhang's content still far away from intelligence. It's still in this entertaining zone. We put so much efforts on entertainment. That's a really sad phenomenon for society. So pure entertainment.
So from a journalist professor perspective, I think the good news is this capital can transform Papi Zhang to China's Jon Stewart. We need a Jon Stewart now in China.
Yeah, money will never do that work. I never seen that. Yeah. I wish it will happen.
You don't think it's going to be like a bubble that will burst?
Money will speed up things. Yes. So where we're going, that's more important. I think the direction is much more important. Yes. If we're going much quicker to entertainment and find 100 duplicates of PP Jiang, that's very likely to happen. That's a sad news. But if the money going to create a more in-depth content, maybe have a much more people helping her, that may be another story.
Thursday afternoon at the auction, Papi Jiang's partner announced to the media that they're going to form what he called the Papi Tube, collecting talented, humorous video clips from other guys to form an independent channel, so to speak, of Papi Jiang, using the brand of Papi Jiang. Do you think this is going to be a huge success commercially?
Of course, this is, I think, what I call sort of disappearance of self-publishing media, because when self-publishing media was kind of capitalized, of course, the content, the way of communication, everything would be changed. So this is really not really good for the really emergence of the significant internet celebrity culture.
But inside the media circle, we like to add this insider news that is everybody's so-called white lies are saying that this is really self-driven phenomenon, because we know the self-published hero Luo Zhenyu is standing behind her and using this whole phenomenon being a sensational news because his business goal is to get this YouTube or self-published tube to incubate more comedians in his platform for commercial purpose. So what we're doing, we see this, we really need to take a step back. Is this real news? Is it just kind of something happen overnight? It's never like that and never that simple.
In his keynote presentation at the opening ceremony of the NPC in early March, Premier Li Keqiang encouraged young people to start their own entrepreneurship in the spirit of innovation as another part of urbanization to sustain the economic growth. To what degree do you think the task of solving employment for up to 10 million this year alone will be made easier with the use of Papi Jiang?
I think probably so far we call this kind of entrepreneurial spirit in a young generation still concentrate on a kind of commercial and business aspect. What we really need to know is that we need thinker, we need philosopher, we need creator. So this is probably the significance of what we call the self-publishing media. And exactly, Papi Jiang become a role model for this creative innovation. This is probably the positive aspect.
Maybe this is the perspective of a media professor from Tsinghua University. If you were to ask your son or your daughter as to how they look at the phenomenon of Papi Jiang, their answer would be surprising, surprisingly different. Well, thank you very much for your participation in this discussion about Papi Jiang, part of the emerging cyber economy or internet celebrity. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.